Hi, friend. Welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Misha McKittrick. This is a podcast where we believe that as you take time for a mindset check, you have more power than you think you do. And where we also believe that the more connected you are to your loved ones, the more capacity, the more natural capacity you have for empathy. I've always been a person who's really passionate about heart space and about connecting with other people through heart space. I think that you know exactly what I'm talking about if you listen to this podcast regularly. Something that is interesting and that kind of can get in the way of that heart space and the way that we feel it and can trip us up in life is our thoughts. Our thoughts are what produce our feelings inside of our heart. And that's why I geek out over our brain. That's why I like to spend so much time learning about that and the science behind that. And I've spent considerable amount of time learning how to rewire our brains and the ways that we can recreate the patterns that exist there. It's not hard work. It just requires commitment. And I want to walk you through that. I want to teach you how to do that, how to choose your feelings, how to shift your energy, and how to raise your vibration. Because when we live life like that, everything changes. The little frustrations in life melt away. Your life is happier and filled with more positivity. And this way of living becomes like automatic when we learn how to rewire our brain, when we learn how to recreate those patterns. And so to be able to teach you that, I'm offering a course. It's an interactive group coaching course that will go through the fall, and it starts in just 1 week. I would love to have you join us. It's going to be 8 weeks of group coaching, and you'll get a couple of one-on-one sessions with me. You also get this tool. It's a great, fantastic gift that will help you and teach you how to meditate in just 3 minutes a day. And I'm really excited to be able to walk you through these things. And I know that it will shift your life. I know that by recreating beliefs and patterns and being able to show you how to create this energy inside of your heart, you can then step into living a life that feels so powerful and expansive. And it will effectively teach you how to create a life that you love. There's lots of ways that you can look more into this. You can book a one-on-one call with me. I'll put the link to that in the show notes. And then you can also drop into our private Facebook group that we walked through last week, which was a mindset challenge. And we really walked through so many of the things. I could give you a basic overview of the things that we're going to be learning in the coaching program. And you can go binge out on those videos. We did 3 days of just dropping in where I'm just pouring into you. So it's stuff you probably just want to watch anyway. But if you want to do that, I'll also put a link in the show notes where you can find that. So if you're interested, make sure that you jump on it because we're wrapping up registration this week and we're starting class next week. I'm so excited and I don't want you to miss it. For those of you that are brand new to this podcast, we are reading through my journal from when I was 15 and pregnant. And we go through a lot of rocky roads and rocky times. If you want to start at the beginning, you can start from episode 1 and we go through chronologically, or you can drop in to this episode with us today. We're happy to have you. This podcast episode doesn't have anybody that you're not familiar with. I will say I'm giving you a pretty raw version of me recording this, and it was a very emotional experience for me to be able to give you this episode. So I hope that you're able just to be with me through this and to gain some really amazing takeaways for you in your life. Let's jump in. May 14th, 1995. Well, about 1 week ago, I received my patriarchal blessing. It said, Misha, one day you'll be married in the temple to a husband who honors, respects, and loves you, and you'll be sealed to him. Misha, you will also have the choice to be sealed to Taylor. Exciting, huh? That is what stressed me out most. After the blessing, we were sitting down, and the patriarch told me that I have a lot harder times than the ones I've already been through ahead of me. I thought I had already been through the toughest. Well, Yesterday, Jesse called and confessed that he'd been hooked on crystal meth. And confessed that he'd been hooked on crystal meth since February. I'm so naive. And then he told me that he quit everything. He had only smoked pot and drank once. I told him that I didn't want anything to do with him, and that I was so mad, and then we got off the phone, and I cried myself to sleep. He was planning on coming down to pull Corey out of a mess. I guess he's about ready to die because of all of the drugs. And when I asked Jesse to come down to sign the papers, he said he couldn't because he had no money. Last night, he was supposed to come to Cedar and call, but instead he called from jail in Salt Lake. He got pulled over, and he had no license and no insurance, cocaine and weed in his pocket. He'll probably go to prison. The Pathfinder is in impound. My dad came down, and we sat and talked and cried our heads off. And he made the toilet paper come all the way from the bathroom. It's Mother's Day, and I wish I could spend I wish I could spend the day with her. I miss you, Tately. Please be with your daddy. Okay, I'm a mess. Okay. Okay, I hope to express and to tell you about so much of this entry, and to express what I'm feeling right now with you. I feel like there's so much backstory that's needed to be able to understand and comprehend what I'm talking about and what the things are that are going on in this story, because even though you've been following the story, all of this stuff that's happening is as much of a surprise to me when it's happening as it is to you now. Just with finding out all of the drugs and stuff was like a big shock right to my face. So let's just start at the beginning and let's really walk through all of this and like break this apart. So the entry starts with me receiving my patriarchal blessing. And you know, if you've been following, that was something that my heart was really like looking forward to and really wanting so bad. Because in the religion that I'm a part of, we believe that our patriarchal blessing is just something that's there to give us direction and comfort and to provide us with maybe things that we can't see at certain times, and that it's something that we can reflect on and find a lot of instruction from. And there was a lot going on in my life at the time, and so I just really felt like I needed that and wanted that. I find it interesting that the patriarch sat with me and told me that I have a lot harder times ahead of me. And how much I truly enjoyed some of the promises that came from that, because it did describe, oh my word, it did describe the person that I'm with now. I'm really sorry for so much emotion. It's just here. Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm really, it's like right now what's happening is I'm able to really zoom out and to see like a really big snapshot of my life. and to see where I was. And the acknowledgement of how hard it was to be in this space. Fast forward, when I hear the words of the patriarch telling me that there's more ahead of me, now sitting in the chair that I'm in, I know the things he's talking about. But I'm also super aware of the blessings and the things that have come in between all of the hard, which is the balance of life, right? And it says that I'll be married in the temple to a husband who honors and respects and loves you. And my heart's very full in recognition of that and the man that I am married to now at this point in my life, and how much he does honor and respect and love me. And I think just in my heart, being able to sit on the other side of it and to be so grateful for that. And then to have all of the memories flash through my mind of being able to be sealed to Taylor. And I know that everybody who listens to my podcast, they don't all completely understand or know like my religious beliefs, but that's the beauty of life, right? That when we drop into the meaning of what something is for someone in their life, and when we understand it, it enriches the experience and how much it meant to that person. We believe that being able to be sealed to our families means that we will be with them forever. And I've had experiences with my daughter having passed that solidify my roots and my beliefs in that in such a very deep way. Being able to be on the other side of having experienced being sealed to her. It was truly one of the most sacred and undeniable experiences of my life. And so, more than anything, I just appreciate you sitting with me in recognition of that and how beautiful it is for me to just zoom out and to see myself on the other side of this, and to also know that whatever you're experiencing, whatever you're going through, to remember that there will be another side of it. And there is so much beauty in the recognition of that it's hard right now, whatever it is, right? The things that we go through that are hard, and that's okay. But it's not going to be your whole life. I think that for me, that is so much of what's happening here. There's so much difficulty that I'm wading through mud, that it just feels like I'm in mud up to my knees, right? And moving forward feels hard. But the glimpses of what is possible for my future, I feel like they gave me so much stability and so much ability really to see that this isn't everything, that there's more coming. And yes, there's more hard, but there's also so much beauty in everything that's coming too. I think that that's one of the most beautiful parts of life, is just knowing and understanding that there is a bit of balance to our lives. There is challenges, and that we all have opportunities with how we meet those challenges. One of my very favorite quotes from C.S. Lewis says, "What we learn from experience depends on the kind of philosophy we bring to the experience." You know, and so as we're talking about balance, and as we're talking about, you know, getting these glimpses of our future, or looking to our past, or being in the hard and seeing that there is the idea that the way that we go through it determines the outcome. And there is extreme power and beauty in that. That what happens in life isn't what matters. What matters is what you think about what happens. What matters is the why. Remember the episode when we did about being a whiner, WHYNERS, and being a person who asks why. It's inevitable that we're going to go through hard things in our life. It's inevitable. But being able to zoom out. And I think so much of the emotion that I'm feeling today, coming from that zooming out picture, also is me really taking in how much I've learned and how much I've grown from the things that I've gone through that have been difficult. And so after this happens, after I receive my patriarchal blessing and I kind of have all of this like things to look forward to, and also knowing that life is going to be, there's just more coming, right? And what do you know, like right away, I get this phone call from Jesse and he's confessing. So I always knew that he smoked pot, and kind of more as a novelty is what I thought, and that he drank and that he, smoked cigarettes. I knew that was all part of his life, but I had no idea until this time that he called and confessed that he'd been hooked on crystal meth. So that was new. That was something that I was processing, and obviously the way I handled it was pushing him even farther away, saying that like I didn't want anything to do with him and I was so mad at him, which is somewhat of a natural response. But now again that I'm zooming out and the things that we'll find out in the next episode, there's a lot more going on to this addiction and him escaping reality. And of course, he didn't want to tell me because he knew that I would not be on board with it. And I don't know. I don't know all the answers to life. I really don't. But the one thing that I want to talk about more than anything today is empathy. There was a certain amount of a line I know that I needed to kind of toe with him, because he would, you give him an inch, he takes a mile. And so I think it was good for me to have that backbone to say like, I'm so mad. And I got off the phone and I didn't want to receive the messages he was giving me. I didn't want them to be true. It was difficult for me to even sit inside of having empathy for anything that he was going through, because I was so upset about the choices that he had taken to handle things, to deal with things. And, finding out all of these drugs and these things that were involved, I also found out later that there were times that he and his friends sort of used me to be the innocent driver as we drove back and forth from Las Vegas and transported drugs and things I had no idea of. And so in a way, like I know that if I knew what was going on at the time, like I wouldn't have had anything to do with it. But also in a way, there's been times when I've sat and reflected and just thought of how like kind of protected and in a little bubble I kind of was. And I learned about something called the Moses fish. And this is a fish that is found in the Red Sea. And there are also really large sharks in those waters that would typically eat, the small fish. And back in the early 1970s, a group of researchers noticed something amazing about the Moses soulfish. All the other fish in that category, like the same size and same weight, would be eaten by the sharks. But for some reason, the sharks wouldn't eat the Moses soul. And so they did research and they figured it out. And they found out that this particular fish, the Moses soul, has a very unique defense system. And anytime it senses some kind of danger, it naturally secretes poisonous toxins from its glands. And so the toxins literally cause the shark's jaws to freeze. They have a picture even of this little Moses soul inside of a shark's mouth. And the shark had come in for the kill, and all it had to do was bite down and there was dinner. But it couldn't do it because of what was coming out of the fish, the way that it was being protected. It kind of cast this bubble around itself in a way that, protected itself because it paralyzed the jaws of the shark. And so that's kind of like how I think of myself during that time. I can remember driving through the gorge. That's what they call this very windy and sort of dangerous road, on the path that we traveled from where we lived to Las Vegas. And I can remember there were times where I was really upset. And honestly, I didn't really care if there were those thoughts in my mind, like I didn't really care to live right now. And I drove somewhat dangerously on that road simply because of my feelings. And the things that I was going through at the time. But now, as I'm able to look back on all of this and put it all together, I can definitely see ways that I was being protected, that everything would come out in time, and I would learn about everything. But for the moment and for the time of the things that I was going through, I feel like because my heart, I was trying to do the right things. I feel like I was blessed in those situations. And I think it's a really beautiful way for us to see that sometimes things happen in our life that we're unaware of at the time. But looking back, we gain so much by being able to see what was happening. We see so much gratitude and love. And I think there's a certain amount of reverence that comes from knowing that we were protected. So I'm sitting in a lot of that emotion today. And then, another really big event happened in this episode. Jesse calls from jail in Salt Lake, and he called me collect. And it was Mother's Day. It was mid-morning, and it was my first Mother's Day after Taylor passed. And I get a phone call that the person that I'm married to was on the side of the freeway, and they found all of these drugs that I was just learning were a huge part of his life. And I was a complete mess. I'm not sure how my dad knew. He may have heard me upstairs, but I remember I'd received the phone call in my room. It was collect. I accepted it. It was not long. And all that I remember is learning that he was on the side of the freeway. And the cops just pulled over to check everything out and found that he had all these drugs. I don't remember how the call ended. I just remember sitting on my floor in my bedroom and sobbing. Just really feeling completely like hopeless. To me, that felt like a bomb, And my dad, it It's one of the most tender memories that I have of my dad. When he came downstairs and he walked right into the bathroom that was across the hall from my room, and he grabbed the toilet paper, and he came into my room, and he just pulled the toilet paper with him, and he sat down on the floor. And he would pull a bunch of the toilet paper and break it off for me and hand it to me. And then he would pull a bunch more and use it himself, because without me even telling him what was happening, he knew it was really messy. And he walked into that situation and immediately just felt what I was feeling. And he just cried with me. And for a long time, he kept pulling the toilet paper from the bathroom that was strung all of the way, just coming off the roll all the way across the hall and into my room, breaking off pieces. And there's so much about that circumstance and about that moment that just allowed me to feel and to cry and to process, just sitting shoulder to shoulder with our backs up against my bed on the floor. There is a story about Clydesdale horses and an experiment that was done with them. They wanted to determine how much weight one of these horses, the largest horses of all, could pull. And so they took one and they hooked him up to a sleigh. And as he walked, they kept adding weights. And the horse was able to pull a total of 7,000 pounds. So they unhooked this horse and they hooked up another horse. And they were testing how much this second horse could pull. And they were surprised to see that this horse, the second horse, could pull more. That horse could pull approximately 9,000 pounds. And they wanted to try one last experiment. They hooked both of these horses up to a sleigh to see if they would pull what the horses could pull together. If they could pull 16,000 pounds, right? 7,000 plus 9,000 pounds. And to see if they could both together pull that weight. And to their amazement, they found that the two horses joined together pulled over 20,000 pounds. So they were able to pull more when they worked together. And I feel like that's how I felt with my dad sitting next to me. Together, we could handle more. And at the time where I felt like it was too much, not only did he come in pulling all of the pounds that he was carrying, but somehow together we were able to pull more. Oh, to me that is one of the most beautiful examples of empathy in my life that I have ever experienced, right? Empathy involves actually feeling what someone else feels. Not just understanding someone's emotions, but feeling them yourself. You know, and I know that I didn't tell my family everything. I don't remember telling them at all about him making that phone call and being, you know, addicted to crystal meth. And I don't even remember what we talked about when he called from Salt Lake. I'm sure at that point, you know, I shared. But the thing that I think is so important to take away from this whole experience is to understand and to realize that the closer we are and the more that we're trying to put ourselves in other people's shoes and the love that we have for them is what allows our empathy to increase. And sometimes life and the stresses and us turning inwards really gets in the way of us being able to show up for other people and to feel for other people and with other people. I think it's powerful to take a moment, and I'm doing the same thing on the other side of this microphone, looking at my life right now and saying, what are the areas? What are the relationships in my life that deserve more of me, more of my attention, so that I can be in tune to the people I care most about and their feelings, without them having to tell me everything that's happening. There are times where that's very valuable, and there's times where the people in our life just need our support, and for whatever reason, our own ideas and beliefs get in the way. So I think that that's a very powerful challenge that I would ask for you or give you this week, as I'm giving it to myself, in being very powerfully affected by, being able to put ourselves in other people's shoes, the people's shoes around us. I have a powerful memory of meeting my dad in San Francisco. So let's see, fast forward from this experience a couple of years, and I was working for Delta Airlines and living in Arizona. And my dad was going to San Francisco on a trip. And, I lived 7-8 hours away from my parents. And so him going to San Francisco, we had this brilliant idea, since I could just hop on a plane, why don't I meet him there? It was one of the best decisions ever that I ever made because it was such a fun trip. Because yes, he had business things to attend to, and maybe I only spent 1 or 2 nights with him in San Francisco, but when he was done with those things, we were able to party big time. So I remember one of the best memories from that experience, and this is a little side note, but it's just, I can't pass it up because it's such a good memory. My dad and I went to this, really fancy dinner that his company was throwing, and they had the most delectable food, the best dinner. They had entertainment through dinner, and then afterwards there was a dance. And my dad and I, we were so, we lit up that dance floor. People asked us if we had been hired to come and to start, keep the party going, which was so funny. And then some of his business colleagues had asked him if I was his girlfriend. And that was so funny because that became my nickname after that. Every time my dad called me or, would talk to me, he would say, he would call me either Guff, which was short for girlfriend, what's up, Guff? Or he would call me and say, girlfriend, what's up? And that's how he referred to me. And it was all so affectionately referring back to this really amazing memory that we had. It was such a blast, such a fun night. We danced all night, the best songs ever, right? Oh, such an amazing time. Well, one of the things that we did on that trip is, we were out riding trolley cars and out on the streets of San Francisco. And I remember my dad walking by a guy, and we had walked by a bunch of people who had signs asking for assistance, money, And one of the signs said, I'll be honest, I just want beer. And my dad, when he read that sign, he started laughing so much. And he just reached into his pocket, gave the guy what he had in his pocket. And he said, at least you're being honest, man. At least you're being honest. So funny. So the memory that brought empathy, more empathy into my life. And I'm telling you this so that you can walk away and really think about the ways that you can bring more empathy into the lives of, your family, your closest ones. We had walked out on the pier, to go get food and walk in the art galleries and all those things. And as we were walking out, my dad started, walking funny. He had something wrong or maybe he was mentally challenged, right? Or slow or whatever. Like he had just kind of like, and for those of you, like, just hang with me for the story to see what he was trying to teach, okay? Because he started walking like this, and he just said, and I was like, Dad, stop. And I was hitting him and laughing and, all that stuff. And he said, Mish, he's like, just stick with me for a minute. I want you to see something. I want you just to watch people. And so we would walk, and I would watch how people would just look at him or respond to him. And I noticed, and by the end of the walk down the pier, we just went into an art gallery, and kind of things went back to normal, and we just kind of went through the different activities and things we were doing at the end of the pier. And then when we were walking back, my dad nudged me and he said, "It's your turn." And I was like, Dad. And he's like, "No, really, there's something I want you to learn here." And so I did my best. And what I learned that day brought me immense compassion, towards anyone who maybe doesn't walk like I do. People had a hard time even looking in my eyes. At the end of the experiment, my dad and I had just a sweet conversation about how powerful it is to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And how walking past people who have different struggles, because I, embodied that or experienced that I will be able to hold eye contact with them and smile and to love. I feel really aware of how much those memories with my dad brought so much capacity for empathy into my life. Dr. Suess said, "Sometimes you will never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory." With that, I propose to you that you have memories. You have memories of things that were brought up for you when I was talking, right? And looking back on those memories can bring you, as you zoom out on your life, it can bring you so much perspective. And there's a lot of value in just looking at what you've learned from those things, from the ways that you can show up with an empathetic heart because of the depths of the things that you've experienced. And I hope that you also see how much power or capacity you have to teach empathy in the lives of the people that you influence. And lastly, I just want to reiterate the power that you have in your relationships. The redwood tree has roots that go 6 to 12 feet deep, but they're so intertwined with other redwood roots that they can withstand strong winds. They literally hold each other up. And I know that we have that same capacity in the relationships of those we love when we are connected, when our roots go deep, when we spend the time to be aware of how much more we can check in with them, and how valuable the time is that we spend laughing, playing a game, asking them what it feels like to be them, saying, "How's your life going?" Those are the things that connect and keep our roots intertwined so that we can help each other withstand the winds, so that we can help each other when we're in the depths, and that when we're so deep that no words have to be spoken because we're already that connected that we feel And I hope that you see that in that you have more power than you think you do. And now I want to drop in and just offer a really heartfelt thank you for being a listener of this podcast. I feel like I have the best listeners, people who are checked in and able to listen to stories and to feel things that help them to process their own life and to start looking at their life in different ways that might be beneficial. I just want to say thank you for joining me in this space and for being so supportive. You are amazing. And lastly, a reminder to check into Power Up, a course on powerful living, the coaching program that I'm going to be doing this fall, starting in just 1 week. It really is time to start checking in with yourself on a deeper level and figuring out how to move from yucky to freedom, and from freedom to harnessing the energy that you can create that can change your life. I can't wait to drop in with you in this space. And for today's podcast, thank you so much for letting me dive into your heart and to be able to share such expansive feelings. And wow, that was such a very emotional episode for me. So thank you for letting me walk through that with you, and as a result, also walking through your journey with you. And I'll leave you with this reminder that it is such a beautiful thing when we show up in the lives of other people so that we can be with them when they are in very deep personal times, when they really just need us to put an arm around them. Until next time, my friend.